Hi, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about Chapter 4, Reviewing the Related Literature. And the details in this chapter can help you, of course, in this course and beyond in your career as a graduate student, as it gives great tips for how to access the databases, how to use the resources at the library. Of course, at Georgia State, you have access to so much through your student fees. So I'm going to be highlighting some of the big points today there and talking about how you can apply this to action research. But I do highly recommend this chapter as you work on other classes, as you write your research papers and are looking for articles to support your work. So the article that gives, or this chapter gives an overview of some strategies to how to best search for articles, and then gives some great tips on how to structure a literature review. Okay, so thinking about the purpose of a literature review as you are orienting yourself to the why of why you are going to be looking for articles. So this is to situate yourself and your action research topic within the broader educational literature on your topic. It can also help you gain insight into the problem or the issue that you are considering. And so I put the action research spiral here just to remind you of what we are dealing with here. So we've been spending a lot of time on identifying an area of focus, and your literature review can help you refine your area of focus, particularly in terms of the intervention that you want to try. So key in your action research is to find something that's happening in your practice that you want to explore to improve. And so once you have gone through the process that we went through in chapter 3, the self-reflection, the exploratory questions to think about the issue, once you have honed in on an issue, then you need to start to think about a strategy or your intervention. And this intervention is a pedagogical shift that you will make in your practice and examine its effectiveness through action research. So once you have your problems, start thinking about, okay, what's something that I want to try to improve this or to improve outcomes for this issue you have decided upon. So you might already have an idea of something you might want to try. I suggest that you start creating like a list, and you can add that to your journaling as well when you start to think about what potential interventions could you do. And this is a great thing to make part of the focus of your literature review, to help you understand how have others used this intervention or this pedagogical strategy, and then even how have others tried to address the problem that you are considering in your classroom. Of course, it can help you save time by clarifying your focus. So an example of that is looking for any gaps in the research that you might be able to address, or if there is already some findings that you can build upon for your research. So here is a quote from the chapter, just to help orient you to the purpose, thinking about existing research as a means of throwing light on the situation and helping you see it more clearly. So I'm going to come back to this spiral perhaps on the next slide, but so as you can see here, identifying an area of focus, once you are doing that process, we went through a lot of strategies in chapter 3, and then now you are ready to start looking in literature to see more about your topic to gain more insight there. So of course, this kind of builds upon what we already talked about in Chapter 3, situating your focus. This is now contextualizing your research within the broader educational focus. It can also help you identify some of the underlying assumptions within the field about your topic or the pedagogical intervention that you're considering using. For instance, if you're looking at student engagement, it can help you understand what the leading theories and assumptions are as it is related to that. And through looking at that and situating yourself within that tradition, it can help you further improve your practice by coming up with an intervention that is aligned with that. And I know I mentioned this on the last slide, but when you're thinking about your action research plan, and the chapter talks a little bit about, should you do your literature review before you collect data or after? I am in the camp that it should be done throughout the process, and it's done for different purposes throughout. So going back to this cycle, so when you're doing an area of focus, the literature review can help you refine the intervention or the pedagogical shift that you plan to do, to give you ideas and help you understand how others have conceptualized this problem, to help you think about how you might take it on. And then particularly when you're analyzing and interpreting data, going back to the literature can also help you make sense of the patterns that you are discovering. And then, of course, developing an action plan. When you come back to that, you can go back to the literature to say, okay, I found this out. Now what should I do next? And this is something too that I have been noticing as you've been talking about your potential areas of focus, is the action research cycle is iterative. So really this would be better as like a spring or a spiral moving upwards towards improving your practice. So you have this broad issue that you want to improve. Maybe it's student engagement. Well, there's so many teacher moves or pedagogical shifts that you could do to impact student engagement. So when you're engaging in action research, try one, collect data, reflect on that, and then you can try something else to build upon it. So it is great to start small and focus in on one thing that you could do to measure, because again, it's iterative and you are going to hopefully continuously engage in this cycle. Anything else here? Oh, okay. So, and I just put this orienting question for you too, thinking about what have others tried to address student engagement, real world connections, whatever your topic is. So the Mills chapter 4 gives really detailed steps for conducting a literature review. I think it's a super comprehensive chapter. So here are the 9 steps here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of them and really connect it to some of the resources here at Georgia State that you could use. So identifying keywords. And this is something too that you're going to get a chance to do with your case study group, just to practice, because I myself and with students, this is something that can be one of the most challenging parts of a literature review is, you know, what you're interested in studying, but sometimes it can take some trial and error to find the correct synonyms that resonate with how leading scholars or how others are talking about that. So we'll talk about that. The databases, I'm going to show you that. And then Mills gives lots of tips about how to refine your search once you're in the databases, checking author links, because if you find a paper that's very useful, that author might have other papers that are very useful. This isn't mentioned, but I also check the reference list of articles that are perfect, that are very relevant. I look there to see who else did they cite and kind of use that as a trail. That is here, examine cited references. Then evaluate sources. I'll talk a little bit about that, like which sources are appropriate for a scholarly literature review and which are not. I'm going to show you how I create citations. There's other ways, so I'm going to show you some of the ways that you can do it that Mills talks about and how I do it too. And then thinking about how to analyze and organize all of your sources and how you can keep those organized so you can lead to the ultimate step, which is to write your review. And so we'll talk about that too, about the purpose. And I'll come back to this too, but when you write a literature review, you're of course summarizing the findings, but it's more so synthesis. You are summarizing the findings as it relates to your work to provide context for the study that you are doing, highlighting any gaps or making connections to what you're doing. Okay, so as far as keywords, so when you are looking for keywords, it can be really helpful to think of a few keywords that you want to search for, and then think of as many synonyms as you can for those keywords. And then once you get into your search engines, you can do combinations of the words, and the text talks about how you can combine them with and or not and quotation marks. This is from a YouTube video that gives some tips about how to maximize database searches. So I will put that link for you as well if you're interested. I'm going to show you where to find that too in the Georgia State Library page. So this is kind of a visualization of those synonyms and what that might look like. I know a lot of people in the class feel drawn to these concept maps, and I do think it's a super useful skill. So if you are journaling and making your mind maps in Canva, you might consider making a mind map, or if you're using just, pencil paper journaling, you might consider making a mind map of the keywords that you want to search for, and then think of all of the synonyms. And so here you can see in this one, they have the connections, the and, the or, it's not on this one, but you can also have not, like planets, or no, environment and vehicles, not something that you don't want with that. So you can also do that as well to combine it. So this is just a summary of the details that Mills gave you in searching databases. We talked about keywords and then the databases, and Mills goes through quite a few. And then it also gives some screenshots to show you examples of what it looks like when you are going from general keywords, and then you can say your subject heading, and you can also look for author, title, and the importance of looking for those subject headings, because it's how the articles are indexed. And when authors write, they're able to indicate the keywords that they want to populate. Then oftentimes the databases will give you categories that you can click on to further refine your search. In the databases, they have citation tools, and then you can even create an account and you can save a search. So if you enter a set of keywords that are particularly useful, you can save that search and then go back to it later to reference those articles. So I want to take you to the Georgia State Library page. So first I want to show you, this is an action research guide. So I'm jumping ahead. Let me keep going and then I'll come here. Okay, so another thing that is really important is to evaluate your source. So Mills goes into a lot of depth and has a rubric thinking about the methodology, the date. I'm most concerned about the first two. Is it relevant for your topic? And is it scholarly? So some of the sources that are appropriate to include in a literature review that you're writing as a graduate student are articles that you find in peer-reviewed journals. And with your Georgia State fees, you pay for this quite a bit, hundreds every semester. So you have access to these. So when you are searching on Google Scholar, it may appear that something is behind a paywall, and it is. However, with your Georgia State credentials, you have access to most journals, or you could get a loan. So I'll show you how to do that. We're looking for primary research studies by an author who's an expert in the field, like a researcher, a professor, someone who's associated with an institution. It is published in an academic journal or an academic publisher or book. It's research-based, and it presents data, has your citations and references. Now, those are the main sources that need to make up the majority of your literature review. You can also include some of the supplemental sources, but those should not be the basis. So these are opinion pieces or pieces that are published like in a popular magazine, or particularly advocacy organizations. In education, there's lots of organizations that publish think pieces and promote the pedagogies that or curriculums that they are trying to champion. So do be on the lookout for that. Also things that are opinions based, that lack supporting evidence, and don't contain citations. So please let me know if you have a question about a source and whether or not it is appropriate. I did want to give you a breakdown too of some of these terms and what we mean by them. So scholarly, so written by experts for an academic audience. So academics, people who hold typically PhDs and are researchers in their field, and that is their career, is to research and publish their research in peer-reviewed journals or academic presses. And peer-reviewed journals are just what they sound like. So that is when a researcher writes a piece of scholarship and they submit it to a journal. A committee of their peers reads and reviews the article, gives feedback, and tells the editor their opinion on if it should be accepted or rejected. So that's how the academic literature process is peer reviewed and checked. So empirical, it's based on observed and measured phenomenon. So things that like experiments, surveys, or data collection. Now, empirical could also be qualitative research that comes from interviews or ethnographies, but empirical, it is based on observation. So the counterparts empirical would be theoretical, and you might have some theoretical sources in your literature review, particularly if you are drawing on a particular theory of student development or a particular teaching method that is more theoretical, but you also want to include empirical studies in there. And then peer reviewed, I know I talked a little bit about that. Some of you have mentioned AERA. We talked about that in chapter 2 with ethics. So they do have several of their own journals, including American Educational Researchers Journal. Okay, so now I'm going to take you to Georgia State. So this is the website. I also type in lib.gsu.edu and it takes me right there. And there's all the databases that you need. There's many, many more, but these databases are definitely available. And then there's also library research guides. There is a library research guide for action research that I am going to link. And in that research guide for action research, there's lots of tutorials that I think are particularly helpful. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you how I use the Georgia State Library website. And when you are accessing the Georgia State Library resources and you are at home, you can log in with your Georgia State credentials. So your username, yes, your username, like for your email, like mine is amartin61, and then the password that you have for your account at the time. So that's what you can use to log into the databases. So this is the research guide for action research, and I'm on the tutorials. I think that this is particularly helpful. This was the screenshot that I showed you about keywords using an advanced search with and or not. This video was good. Others like quotes, asterisk, and parentheses. So all of these are great tutorials that you can use. This is our education librarian who can help if you are needing help narrowing down your search. So I have this page linked in iCollege if you want to check out any of these tutorials. Okay, so Georgia State Library, I told you I go to lib.gsu.edu, and it takes you here. So when you are on the homepage for the Georgia State Library, you have this search bar. Now, this search bar will take you to everything in the Georgia State Library. So it takes you to like books, articles, dissertations, film, all of the resources. But when you are doing a literature review, it's most helpful to go to the databases. So scroll down to databases by subject. We can go to education. And here are the databases that are mentioned in the chapter. The chapter talks a lot about ERIC. So when you go to ERIC, it will prompt you to log in. So that's what I was looking for, your campus ID and your password. This is what you use to log in, and it will take you right there. So once you have logged in, you will be here. So here you can type in your keywords, and this is where you can try all of your synonyms. So I think that, okay, so I can't remember. I searched for these articles. I was going to show you how I got there, but so let's say that you were looking for, you're considering for yours. I saw a lot of great examples of ideas that people were thinking about. So one thing that I noticed is some people were talking about, I want to improve how my students collaborate. And so in order to, or they've noticed that their students struggle to collaborate. And I have definitely noticed this with my students as well. And so they talked about the issue, and then they said, I wonder, like, if I intentionally taught, if I strategically taught group roles or collaboration strategies, how that would impact it. So okay, so to look this up, I am going to look up like group roles and collaboration. And I'm going to say elementary school because I'm in elementary, or maybe I'll just say elementary. So, and again, you would need synonyms to see that. Okay, so I'm seeing some options here that look like they could potentially be good sources. So here, structuring collaboration and mixed ability grouping to promote verbal interaction, interdependence. This one, collaborative robots, more than just working in groups. The purpose of this study was to determine what collaborative interventions produce positive effects for students working on collaborative robot projects. So I was able to find some things here, but you might have to try some different synonyms to do that. And then you can always do the advanced search like they talked about. And for your fields, you can select subject to refine that further, to find something there. And then also once you are in and you have your search, you can create folders. You can see I have a few different folders already related to school choice, gentrification. So you can create folders to save articles, and you can save your search. You can even share your search. So you can make this search and you can share it. So this is something that you can do, or you could email it. So this is something that you can do if you wanted to share with your case study group, the search that you did. Okay, so that is just a few things with the Georgia State Library. Another thing I wanted to show you is if you are in Google Scholar, it often too will prompt you. So maybe I will say group roles. I'll do the same search here. Group roles and so when you do that, you will see that Oh, I forgot to show you guys something else. Okay, so here's another one with robotics. So when you click on it, it will take you to the site here. This one has full text, but let me show you one. Okay, so this is like Taylor and Francis, which is a major publisher of a lot of scholarly journals. So I think that I'm already logged in because I'm already logged in with Georgia State. Okay, so if you're not logged in here, you will log into your institution because you do have access. And then you can go through Open Athens. You can also type in Georgia State, but you can go through Open Athens. And as you can see, access is provided through Georgia State. And then you can view the PDF. You can download the PDF. So I wanted to show you that. Now, another thing is once you are in the either database or in the article, you can, this is where you can view the citations of the article. You can also click right here, cite the article APA, copy and paste, you have your citation. So same thing in EBSCO or in ERIC. If you have an article that, like, let's say that this robotics one was good for you. So you click right here, find it at GSU, and it will take you to the journal to get it, to get the PDF. And you can also cite it right here. So you can download the citation or you can copy and paste. And when you are in ERIC over here, you can also select cite and you can copy and paste the citation. So that makes sure that you have the correct citation. So please do peruse the Action Research Guide and some of these tutorials and get in there and start looking up some searches, find some articles to collect about your topic. The text gives you some tips on how to annotate your articles, looking for the main points there. For other people that mentioned they were visual, they talked about using a literature matrix to think about how to kind of sort through the articles to keep track of them. You can see this is a bit old school if you look at the years. I use EndNote. So there are, if you find as you continue in your graduate school journey that you want to use reference software, you also have a subscription to that through Georgia State, and there's a lot of resources with that through the Georgia State librarians. If you want to have a reference manager to keep track of your references and to annotate and to cite for you. Okay, so last thing, most important thing, is writing the literature review. Hopefully that was helpful though, how to use the Georgia State library, because this is something you'll be doing for all of your classes. So the structure. So you start broad, you get specific, and you might have subheadings, and then you come to your conclusion, which leads to your work. So you are trying to summarize the main findings by theme or variable as it relates to your study. So you need to provide like a meaningful overview, again, the V-shaped structure. And you are, again, someone asked about first person, you should be writing in first person in action research. And so you can be talking about the connection to the literature that you find to your work and making connections between them and showing how your thinking is building upon the findings from this research. So you're not just summarizing Article 1 said this, Article 2 said this, Article 3 said this. That would be like a list without analysis. You need to find, when you're talking about the findings, present them in a way that shows the significance as it relates to what you're doing. And same thing here, you don't need to ignore contradictory studies. You can say, so let's say that you're looking at the example we're talking about, using group rules. Okay, so the robotics teacher found great success with this. However, a math teacher studying this amongst mixed groups found limited effectiveness with her students. So that's okay to talk about that. And that probably would be very informative for your work. Based on that, I'm going to try it like this to hopefully get something similar to what the robotics teacher found. Okay, so the literature review. So chapter 4, like I mentioned, has so many great tips, and the overall purpose is to help you frame your research. So I encourage you to get in there, go to the Georgia State Library page and start doing some searches and see what you find, and saving the articles look relevant, that you might want to come back to. So this is something that we are going to be talking about this week, and then thinking about not only your focus, but then in your case study too, just to practice how you would do a search.